Hi, welcome to my channel guys. This is the first part of Marvel God of Blood. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and comment down below. The author's website will be in the description. Chapter 1, Vampire. I don't want to die in the Marvel world. And why do I have to be a vampire? Why am I so unlucky? In the dimly lit room with the windows closed, Burt Wong looked at the poster on the wall with Tony Stark's handsome face, and his head hurt a little, although he likes Marvel movies. He doesn't want to travel to this dangerous world, which is the same as surviving doomsday, let alone as a vampire who is at the bottom. Vampires are afraid of the sun, garlic, and silver. Even being an ordinary person is 100 times better than being a vampire. At least, ordinary people can go to the beach to enjoy the sun, beauty, and bikinis. I have to find a way to change all of this. I don't want to be a mouse all my life. Burt's eyes became sharp. He looked at the poster on the wall and thought deeply. Tony Stark looks the same as in the movie. It should be a movie-based Marvel world. Well, the only vampires in Marvel movies are in Blade, but now it's 2008, and the era of Blade seems to be quite early. After the rise in popularity of Marvel movies, Burt rewatched the Blade trilogy. So he was a little knowledgeable about the matters of vampires. At this moment, a voice suddenly came in from the door. Burt, why do you keep staring at Tony Stark's poster? Do you like men? Burt turned his head and saw a pale red-haired woman in a t-shirt and shorts looking at him sneeringly at the door. Next to the red-haired woman was a 1.9-meter strong man. Seeing Burt looking over, the strong man glared at him fiercely. Burt pretended to be cowardly and looked away. This man and woman are also vampires. The woman is called Jenny, and she is the one who bit Burt before the time of travel. To put it simply in one sentence, Burt coveted Jenny's body and Jenny craved for Burt's blood and money. As for the man, his name is John. He is a thug. Burt had been beaten many times by him before, and he did not dare to resist in front of him. Burt asked in dissatisfaction, "Why are you here again? What, do you have an opinion on our comings?" John said irritably. "Don't forget, we turned you into a noble vampire." "That's right. Do you know how many humans have no chance of becoming vampires?" Jenny said. As she said before, the development of new vampires won't happen just with a bite. They need to drip their blood. Who the fuck wants to become a vampire? Burt complained secretly. He sighed. The vampires are completely different from what I imagined. I thought that the vampires would be like the vampires in the movies, elegant and noble. After speaking, Burt glanced at John and Jenny with a look of disappointment, and the two suddenly became angry. Does this look mean that they are not noble or elegant? It's true, but you can't say it out loud. Can we be noble and elegant without money? We are not those purebloods. Purebloods are born vampires' offspring that were conceived between two turned-blood or born vampires, Jenny walked in and snorted coldly. Those pure-blooded vampires are better than the vampires in the movies. They not only have infinite wealth, but also inexhaustible blood, and even raise many handsome men and beauties as their slaves. We can only buy expensive blood bags to drink. If it wasn't for those cowardly purebloods who signed a contract with humans, and we're not allowed to suck human blood, how could we do this? John complained unhappily. Every day's hard work is just enough to buy blood bags. It's not as good as being a human being. By the way, I heard that the money for buying blood bags was different for pure blood and mixed blood. Pure blood, mixed blood. Burt's eyes flashed and he asked again, "Since there is a contract, why did you turn me into a vampire?" John came in, grabbed Burt by the collar, and lifted him off the ground. He said grimly, "Boy, what did you say? Say it again. I didn't hear it just now." "I didn't say anything." Burt turned his head away and shouted, pretending to be a coward. In fact, he couldn't stand John's breath. "It stinks." John snorted, threw Burt on the ground, and said impatiently, "Stop talking nonsense. Give me $20. $20,000. Where are you spending it too fast?" Burt got up and said reluctantly, "The parents of this body left him a lot of assets before the car accident. He was always worried that he would be targeted by the bad guys. But the bad guys didn't come instead. The vampires came." Jenny giggled and said, "It's okay. When you run out of money, we'll take you to find the next rich man, and then use your blood to develop new vampires, as it's still sustainable." Burt secretly complained. He sighed, picked up the checkbook from the side, and began to sign. The old American side generally used credit cards or checks for large sums, and $20,000 was not a small number. John nodded with satisfaction. He said, "Don't be so stingy. When Boss Deacon leads us to overthrow purebloods, all humans will become our food, and then we will truly become nobles. Yes, vampire nobles." drink more blood, spend more money, all human beings are our slaves. Ginny also shouted frantically, in the hearts of mixed-race vampires, Deacon Frost is their savior. Deacon Frost, Bert's heart moved. If he remembered correctly, Deacon Frost was the villain in the Blade movie. In the movie, he successfully led the mixed blood to overthrow the pure blood and used the Daywalker blade and 12 pure blood elders' blood to turn himself into a blood god. The blood god was very strong, and he is not afraid of sunlight, garlic, or silver. He can even be recovered after being cut in two, but it seems to reduce his IQ, that is to say, the plot of Blade has not started yet. This is good news. Blood God has powerful strength and endless wealth and opportunities. A flash of light flashed in Bert's eyes, and then he handed the check to John and asked about Deacon Frost. Boss Deacon will hold blood banquets every once in a while. I'll show you at that time. It's difficult for us mixed-race vampires to survive alone, and we have to be in a group. John took the check, patted Bert's shoulder, and said with a wide-eyed smile. Bert snorted coldly. Grouped together. Isn't this just exploitation? Pure blood exploits mixed blood, and you exploit me. After getting the money, John and Ginny left happily. They will spend all the money in a short time and then come to Bert until all his money is spent. This is the way they thought of making a fortune. I still need you to help me integrate into the vampire group, so I'll spare your life for the time being. Bert stood by the window watching the two leave and sneered inwardly. They were just two vampires. If he wanted to, he could easily kill them. Just take a photo of them with ultraviolet light. It's so sad that vampires are too weak. Bert couldn't help but complain. He thought for a while, picked up his clothes, and went to the street to find the owner of the gun shop. If he wanted to finish his previous thoughts, he still had to strengthen himself first. The owner of the gun shop had a scary face. After listening to Bert's request, he said in amazement, "You want to find an instructor to train your combat ability? What trouble have you encountered? If so, I will suggest you call the police or spend money to eliminate the disaster." Bert shook his head. "No, I just wanted to do something exciting all of a sudden." The shopkeeper of the gun shop glanced at Bert and said, "Then you can go to a formal training company. Although I have a shooting range here, I don't have an instructor. It's just for people to test guns. That's too slow. I don't have that much time. You are well connected. You should know some private instructors. The kind who have been on the battlefield," Bert said. "I can pay you some introduction fees, or buy some more things." Hearing that there is money to be made, the shopkeeper of the gun shop smiled and said, "In this country, you can do anything with money. But the price of private instructors is not low. A good instructor is naturally worth a good price." Bert smiled. He heard early in the morning that the boss was a retired veteran, and he had a way to find them. As for money, if he can't solve the trouble of vampires, it's useless. Besides, it doesn't belong to him anyway. He can use it as he like. "You are good." The owner of the gun shop didn't talk nonsense, closed the door of the shop, took out a notebook from the drawer, and put it on the table. "The above is the training officer I can contact. But you need to discuss the specific conditions yourself. I will help you by introducing them. Let me consider." Bert picked up the notebook and turned it over. The information on it was very detailed. In addition to the name, there was also a resume, but there were no photos. Bert turned a few pages and saw a name. He was stunned for a moment. The owner of the gun shop glanced at him and introduced, "This is a real ruthless character. He has won the Navy Cross and the Medal of Honor, and now he is training for the troops officer. Of course, he charges the highest." "It is indeed a ruthless character," Bert nodded, and secretly complained, "Can you not be cruel? This is the Punisher, Frank Castle. By the way, the Punisher, who has big eyebrows and big eyes, secretly accepts private work. Punisher, an anti-hero who uses violence to control violence. The one he targets will die. To exaggerate, even the cockroaches in the gang will not survive. Of course, Frank's family isn't dead yet. He's still a retired trainer. And he's not blackened. It's him. I want to talk to him." Bert closed the notebook and said. The shopkeeper of Scar smiled and said, "I hope you have enough proof to buy the gun you need. Although it is easy to buy a gun here, you need a gun license. Among them, it is much easier to buy a rifle than to buy a pistol, and these certificates, I am sorry, he does not have one." Bert smiled and said, "I can buy some souvenirs, the expensive ones." The next night, Bert met Frank Castle, a tall and strong man with a sturdy and iron-blooded aura in the cafe. He doesn't know if it was because he became a vampire, but he smelled the mountain of corpses from Frank. With the smell of the sea of blood, there is no doubt that this is a ruthless person, a wolf. Frank frowned at the sight of pale Bert. To be honest, he didn't like him very much. He was too thin, and his breath was too cold, which made people uncomfortable. However, thinking of his comrades who were short of money and needed help, Frank sat down and talked about this private life seriously. After the friendly greeting, Bert smiled and said, "Mr. Castle, I approve of your strength, but I have a few requirements." Seeing that he started talking about business, Frank breathed a sigh of relief. He hated politeness the most, and he said, "Tell me about it." "First, training can only be done at night. I don't have time during the day." "No problem. I'm not free during the day." "Second, I want to have the ability to fight in the shortest possible time, both for fighting and firearms." We can use the shooting range if you want." "Of course, I will pay for it." Frank glanced at Bert and said coldly, "It's not impossible, but in that case, the training will be cruel, and you may even go to the hospital. I have strong resilience." "No problem." Bert smiled and said, "Mr. Castle, you can train me as you like, as long as you think it can improve my strength." Frank couldn't help but glance at Bert again. Does this kid have any special hobbies? As for the third request, it's not a little too much?" Bert said a little embarrassedly, and Frank frowned. Before he could think about it, Bert continued, "I hope you can protect me during the training process." Frank was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Bert said, "I just want to go to the street to find some violent elements to fight." "You protect me." This one, Frank doesn't have a problem with this request. When he was in the Middle East, he often asked recruits to do this. He pretended to hesitate and said, "You need to pay more." Bert laughed. "No problem, Instructor Castle. I'll trouble you in the future. Don't worry. I also have a request." Frank waved his hand and said, "You have to pay first, and whether you quit this training or not, I will not refund the money." "Okay." Bert nodded and agreed. If it was someone else, maybe they would torture him on purpose and let him quit. But the arrogant Punisher would not. After only 24 hours, he realized his naivety. "Damn, this guy's torturing me on purpose, and then wants to run away with my money." Bert covered his cheeks, feeling that his teeth were about to be knocked out. "Don't you want to have the ability to fight in the shortest possible time? Then go straight to actual combat training, and, if you want to fight, the most important thing is to learn to be beaten first, learn to endure pain, and learn to keep calm in battle." Frank, who was wearing gloves, shouted and punched him with a ferocious momentum like a tiger hunting, which was daunting. Bert backed away in fright while parrying with his arm, but after only a few punches, his arm was so painful that he couldn't lift it, and then, of course, he was punched in the face again, and he fell to the ground in a whirl, with a loud bang. "I don't want to cheat you. If you give up, I will give you a month of regular training, but if you want to make it fast, you must endure such pain or torture." Frank said, "Actually, it's not as good as my training for recruits. At least, I haven't started swearing. Who do you look down on?" "Go on." Bert grinned and said with an ugly smile. He doesn't want to be a vampire who hides and can't see the sun all his life. Since he has come to this Marvel world, whether he can live or not, he must live wonderfully. In this way, it is worthwhile to come here by yourself. Life is as gorgeous as summer flowers, and death is as quiet and beautiful as autumn leaves. A glimmer of admiration flashed in Frank's eyes, and he shouted, "Then get up. Don't lie there like a bitch." Bert endured the pain, struggled to get up, and then said solemnly, "Instructor, you are suspected of sexism. You still have time to talk nonsense. It seems that the training intensity is not enough." Frank snorted coldly and stepped up his training. Then, Bert almost went to the hospital. Frank wanted Bert to enter the hospital, but Bert refused. He just dealt with it briefly and went home to drink the blood, and the pain is gone. That's right, drinking the blood he healed. Vampires are not completely without benefits, and their resilience is far stronger than ordinary people's. The only problem is that blood is too unpleasant to drink. And Bert is considering whether it can be made into various dishes to achieve the same effect, such as blood sausage, blood porridge, blood prosperous, and so on. Is he overtrained? His physique is much worse than those of the recruits. Frank hesitated a bit. It was easy for him to go beyond when he trains. There had been cases of recruits being sent to the hospital before. Well, quite a few. Tomorrow. No. I will reduce the training a little the day after tomorrow. As for tomorrow, he probably won't come. Frank thought to himself. It was just beyond his expectations that the next night, Bert came running in the same spirit as yesterday, and asked impatiently, "What are you training for me today?" Frank was speechless. He confirmed two things. First, this guy's resilience is really good, and he doesn't look like a human being. Second, this guy does have special hobbies, Frank yelled. Rookie, what are you doing standing there? Hurry up and run. I want you to run 20 laps today. Yes, instructor, Bert replied loudly. Just like that, for the next month or so. He received Frank's training at night, and during the day he learned about this strange world on the internet. There are still many differences between this world and the movie. For example, this world has the Oscorp Group, which is not small in scale. The Oscorp Group is a concentration camp for villains, but it doesn't matter. I'm not a gentleman anyway. Fortunately, there are no mutants in this world, otherwise, it would be troublesome, Bert thought to himself. If mutant movies were also added, the world would be really lively. That night, Jenny came to visit again. She looked at Bert at the door and was very surprised. Why are you completely different, like a different person? More than a month ago, Bert was thin and weak, and his whole person looked very cold, but now, he is much stronger. And even the coldness on his whole body has been diluted a lot. Bert said casually, why are you here again? The $20,000 have been spent so quickly. Jenny said dissatisfiedly, am I the kind of woman who comes to you just to get money? Bert nodded very seriously, yes, you know me. Jenny laughed, and she said, don't worry, I won't ask you for your money for nothing this time, and I will take you to the blood banquet hosted by Boss Deacon. Not only will there be a lot of blood, but there will be living people for us to enjoy. Hey, maybe you will be attracted by beautiful women. Blood banquets are always messy. Blood feast, Bert's eyes flashed and he asked, didn't you say that we have an agreement with humans that we can't hunt living people? Boss Deacon doesn't care about any agreement. Of course, he doesn't do it too much. Usually, he sends beautiful women to seduce some men who are dizzy when they see women, like you. Jenny giggled and said, of course, they won't have such good luck becoming vampires. They'll only be food. Bert, do you know I'm good to you? I'll feel better if you don't want the money. Bert snorted and asked, when do we leave? Jenny said, right now. John is waiting for you below, and we'll go when you are ready. I am ready. Bert went back to the house and took everything he needed, such as a Glock 17. Purchased illegally in Hell's Kitchen, a special silver-plated flying knife, a small homemade smoke bomb, etc. This month of cruel training has made him grow a lot. Although he is still not a master, he is no longer a weakling without power in his hands. Soon, Bert got into John's car and set off. While driving, John showed off to Bert, this time, you should be able to see Quinn, the right hand of Boss Deacon. If it weren't for me, a vampire like you would have no chance to see him. Quinn, Bert said. John, what is the strength of Quinn and Boss Deacon? Are they the same as us, similar to ordinary people? Of course not. They are all elite vampires. Elite? Yes, elite level. They are very fast. Unless they are stabbed in the heart and head by Silver, they will not die easily. John said enviously, once a pure-blood vampire becomes an adult, he will have elite-level strength, and for our mixed blood, only outstanding people like Deacon and Quinn are elites. Bert asked, how can I become an elite vampire? You want to be elite? John looked disdainful, and Jenny laughed as if hearing a big joke. Bert said, think whatever you want. There are only two ways to become an elite class. One is to devour a lot of blood from living people, John said. The other is to devour the blood of high-ranking vampires, such as pure-blood vampires. Of course, no one dares to do this. Offending pure blood is a death penalty. Soon, they came to the door of an ice store in Brooklyn. John pointed to the symbol composed of 3 bars and some patterns on the wall of the ice store and said, that is the mark of Boss Deacon. Our vampire clan, generally only pure-blood vampires have a mark, but Boss Deacon is an exception. Jenny said admiringly, Boss Deacon is of course an exception, and there are even pure-bloods working for him, Bert thought to himself. In the heart of mixed blood, Deacon Frost's reputation is high, but why does he have so much blood to hold a blood banquet? Then, the 3 got out of the car and walked towards the ice store, because Bert was a stranger and was only allowed to enter the store together after showing his teeth. The bar where the blood banquet was held was hidden behind the store, and most people would not find it. Looking at the pig corpses in the ice store, Bert frowned slightly. The beginning of Blade's Edge seems to be in this store, right? Could it be so coincidental? Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe and comment down below if you would like a part 2.